Welcome to another edition of 10 for 10, 10 sports topics with the News 10 team. I am Griffin Haas alongside Brian Rudman. And the summer it's always a downtime for sports. You really just have baseball, obviously, and locally you have the track and some other things going on, but it's a pretty slow time.
Yeah.
But we are ramping towards prime time. We're getting to the trade deadline in baseball, which we're going to talk about, training camp opening up in football, which we'll get to. But we begin with baseball, and we'll start with the New York Yankees. Now, normally a lot of times we're talking about how teams are performing or what. Not a lot there. They split. They won a series with the Phillies. They split with the White Sox. The real talk right now in baseball is the trade deadline. Yeah. The trade deadline is August 3rd. So we were recording this on Thursday, July 30th. So next Monday will be the trade deadline. And all three of our teams in different ways are going to be very active. Yeah. But we begin with the Yankees, where another hole may have opened up with Cody Bellinger going down. Yeah. Maybe not a long-term hole, but you could see them look to get an extra bat that maybe they weren't looking for, because their outfield right now is not exactly, murderer's row. Until you're going to get Judge back, you're going to get Stanton back, who won't play the outfield, and you're going to get Bellinger back before the playoffs, most likely. But right now, they're rolling out. You have Grisham still in center, but Dominguez in right, who's a young guy, obviously, and then Schumann, Spencer Jones. Not a lot of guys that you can bank on. And when you're looking at that lineup right now, there's not really a lot of guys you can bank on. Period.
No, it's looking like a thin lineup. Ben Rice is obviously an all-star, but, without Judge, without Bellinger, without Stanton, all of a sudden that lineup thins out a lot. And especially with Jazz Chisholm, who can be streaky, Caballero, who can be up and down at times. And meanwhile, Paul Goldschmidt, perhaps your second most consistent bat in the infield outside of Ben Rice, plays the same position as Ben Rice. So.
Yes, and he's been DHing a lot now. At least that opens up the DH, which is not. It's not good that people are hurt, but the DH spot's a little bit more open than it's been. So you see Goldie, but like today, they lost to the White Sox, a walk-off walk today. Yeah,
2-1. Nobody scored in regulation.
No, and it's Grisham then Rice, which that's fine. But then you get to Dominguez as your 3-hitter. It's just not a 3-hitter. You get Goldschmidt. Spencer Jones is not a 5-hitter right now. Jazz Chisholm, who's still struggling. Caballero played as well today for pinch running for him. Volpe, who is Volpe, and then McMahon, who's McMahon, and Wells, who's hitting 162.
Yeah, pretty much at this point every day, because of all of these injuries, the bottom third of your lineup, which is where it was to begin with, but the bottom third of your lineup were positions you were looking to address. Now the middle third of your lineup is just guys who you were hoping were going to be platoon or plug-and-play guys, or maybe not in the lineup at all.
And that's going to change. So this is not going to be a long-term problem. If you can, I think Judge is maybe the biggest if, which is also the biggest X factor.
It's very scary for Yankees fans.
So he's hopefully getting back at the end of the regular season, but it's going to be tight with his window. Stanton's the king of we're hearing. Stan's not far away. Yeah. We'll hear that until, the cows come home. But Boone's constantly he's not far away. He's not far away. It's like he
hasn't been far away for...
he's been in another area code. So, he's been pretty far away. So, but, again, they're saying he's not far off.
Right. Just a flight away.
It looks like Bellinger's going to miss a month. So, that pushes you into August, September. Yeah. So, they'll be back for the playoff run, most likely, all three of them, which drastically changed the lineup. Yes. But we talked about it a little bit last week with me and Tommy about what they are going to be looking to do with the trade deadline. And really the focal points are going to be bullpen. Yeah. They don't need starting pitching. They've got plenty of that. Yeah. They could honestly trade some starting pitchers, a Will Warren or a Ryan Weathers. You could see that to get pieces back. So it's going to be bullpen and then catcher, and then, do you fill third base or shortstop, the left side of that infield? But now I think you add outfield to the list as well, where that was not going to be a problem. I don't think you're going to, go out and make a huge splash there, but could you find a guy, who can be a part of your plans maybe in the postseason, but at least also kind of bridge the gap over the next couple months?
Yeah, I think in an ideal world, listen, catcher is a position they need to address. Shortstop or third base, for the Yankees, you'd like to see them address that. I think in the outfield now you're looking for maybe a guy who could be either a lefty specialist or a righty specialist, or maybe a guy who could come off the bench in the postseason, but in the meantime can give you meaningful at bats during the regular season. Because Dominguez and Jones, those aren't guys who, they have potentially promising futures, but they're not guys who you were thinking you were going to be relying on in the dog days of summer to position yourself for that postseason.
Yeah, so I have an article up right now, and this is obviously just one person's opinion, but Jorge Castillo, who reports on New York baseball for ESPN, some names that he threw out there in terms of outfielders would be like Taylor Ward, Joe Adell, Helio Ramos, Lane Thomas, Spencer Steer, like guys who are, Spencer Steer was just placed on the injured list, so he's probably not going to be an option there. But guys who are not, like Taylor Ward, he's in 248 for the Orioles with 7 homers.
Right.
A guy who, if you're playing in a postseason game, not a bad thing, but also not going to be tough to take out of the lineup. Or you have Joe Adell, who who's hitting 244, 16 homers. So maybe you get a guy that has some pop, can play a factor if you need him to, but also when those guys come back, he's not going to he's not going to take up one of their spots.
Right.
In terms of catchers, because that is going to be a huge spot. Ryan Jeffers is going to be one I think that will be maybe the most likely option for them.
Yeah.
He's hitting 294. He has 9 homers and 927 OPS. He was injured for a stretch of the season. He plays for the Minnesota Twins. Minnesota, they're out of it. If they're in it because of the American League technically, but I don't even know.
They're a game out.
They're a game out, but again,
American League.
They're 55 and 55. So like, if you're the Twins, I think you're at least listening. You're not like, it's not a bar, but he is a free agent this year.
Yeah.
So if you're Minnesota and you're being realistic, are you winning a championship this year, or does it make more sense to get pieces for Ryan Jeffers? They're not going to give him away, but I think that you have to be realistic in this era of the third wild card spot. There are many teams who are going to find themselves in it.
Right.
And some of those teams could get hot. I think the Twins need to be realistic. Their team's just simply not good enough to contend.
Right.
So I think that he would be available for the right price. Tyler Stevenson's a solid catcher for the Reds. Jonah Heim on the A's. Hunter Goodman on the.
That's a guy with 3 more years of control.
And he has 31 homers, so that would be a massive package.
You would have to give up a lot, but that would also be a massive get for the Yankees. That changes the lineup not just this year, but for years to come. That would be, if you can get Hunter Goodman, that is. Bring him in, but
I think the reason that Jeffers could maybe make more sense for the Yankees is just because they do have multiple holes to fill. Yeah. So you can't put all your chips in on one piece.
It's true, yeah.
Because it's not like, we get a catcher and we're done. And knowing the way that Cashman and the Yankees front office operates, they are not always the most inclined to, go all in, on one piece of the deadline. And they have been hesitant to give up too much, I think.
No, it's true.
Is fair to say. I don't think they've done enough in terms of what the fans would like them to do in years past. And another reason I'm saying that is because another guy that they could very well be in on is Mason Miller.
Sure.
When we look at the bullpen. Now, bullpen's always interesting because guys, it's such a finicky position where, some guys you give up nothing for and they come in and they get hot down the stretch. Sometimes you give up a lot for Ryan Helsley, and he stinks.
Right.
The Mets last year. Mason Miller is just so talented that that's a guy you go all in for, and then maybe get a couple other pieces around him, and you make Bednar a setup guy like that. Really
all of a sudden,
changes the bullpen.
That's a scary bullpen.
But that is going to take a lot to get him. He has a .79 ERA. He has 28 saves. He's the real deal. He's unbelievable. So that's going to be a big package if you get Mason Miller. So you can't get like Mason Miller and Hunter Goodman if you're being realistic without depleting your farm system.
For me personally, I would prioritize the catcher position because I think the Yankees have one of the top bullpen ERAs in baseball. They have some holes certainly, but the back end isn't necessarily the issue. They've had success. for me, an everyday catcher, I mean, they're rolling out their bottom of the lineup's really
So
bad
it's
right
interesting
now.
though, like I get what you're saying in terms of prioritize, but like that position's more important right now because of how bad they have been. But if you're asking me, like, would you take Hunter Goodman and like an average reliever or Ryan Jeffers and Mason Miller? I think that changes the equation. So like,
Yeah,
if you can get Mason Miller and still get a good catcher, even a solid catcher, I would probably take that over the alternative of getting Hunter Goodman and then maybe you're like a Luke Weaver or something like that for the Mets who we'll talk about. You know,
you're saying you'd rather have Ryan Jeffers and Mason Miller over Luke Weaver and
Luke Weaver is
Hunter
maybe
Goodman?
not a great
Okay.
example because I don't know if they would get also Luke Weaver because
Right.
they would still need to give up a lot for him.
that's a high. Yeah,
So I'm more of like a rental guy or Brooks Raley or someone like that. It's close. Also, again, you do have to be worried about Colorado. I know Hunter Goodman's a really good player. How is Ryan McMahon working out? Especially when you're looking at home runs in particular, like 31 home runs in Colorado is a lot different.
Yeah, but he's hitting well for average. I mean,
250.
I mean,
It's not, he's good,
decent
but
for-
like
yeah, for
Ryan
a
Jeffers is hitting 290.
Yeah.
His OPS is 927. He's just been hurt, so like I don't know if he'd
Yeah.
have 30 homers, but and you would take less to get him because of he's a free agent.
Yeah.
Where Hunter Goodman, his OPS is 872. So
Yeah.
like Jeffers actually has a higher OPS. It's just Goodman's hit more home runs.
yeah, I think the interesting thing with Goodman is the control that you get over him for 3 years at a position where you don't usually get offensive production. I think the other thing, and this has actually been talked about, listening to Red Sox broadcasts, they're talking about potentially being interested in a catcher. I don't really know if they will be. We'll get to them in a minute. But the way they handle the pitching staff and their interactions and all that goes into the catching spot. So the Yankees obviously need to bring in a better bat for that position. But,
So here's one more point I wanted to make about the Yankees bullpen because I was trying to find the stat of this, and I think this highlights it well. Sometimes bullpen ERA can be a little bit deceiving because while the back end might not look like a problem, they have had 48 save opportunities and they've only saved 29 games. That is almost 20 blowing saves.
All right.
Where you look at the Red Sox who have a guy like Chapman, 30 and 40.
Yeah.
Or you look at the Twins even 30 and 42. Like I'm trying to see if they lead the league in blown saves. It looks like they do. They don't have that category. The White Sox have blown 20, so they're just above them. The A's have blown 19 as well. The Royals have blown 21. So those are like the Royals are one of the worst bullpens in the sport.
Right.
Man, the Tigers have blown 25 saves. These are teams that you don't want to be talked about.
This is
you don't want to be in that company.
This is true. I think, the one thing is Bednar has not been the issue, but I think listen, if you can get Mason Miller, you get Mason Miller.
Bednar's not the issue. I think the issue is
it's
that when
the
Bednar
7-8
in a
guys.
regular season, which is a little bit different when it's not Bednar.
Right, yes.
Doval has been bad.
Yeah.
Paul,
It's also the guys getting it
like
to him.
Paul Blackburn has been good, but like do you want to rely on Paul Blackburn in the postseason?
Listen, they need bullpen help. There's no doubt.
Yeah, like and when you add a guy to the closing role, and you move Bednar up to a very good setup man, that drastically changes what that bullpen looks
It definitely does. I think, yeah.
So again, those are kind of the biggest things for the Yankees, and then again, adding around. Do they add an outfield piece? Do they add shortstop? Like, do they go get like Zach Neto or C.J. Abrams or?
I mean, those are going to be
Pena
massive holes to get those guys in.
Right. So there's ways to improve the team. I doubt they do anything at shortstop. I think they've stated their infatuation, whether you understand it or not, with Anthony Volpe, and they have Caballero. And again, there are other spots that are more. They don't have a catcher who's hitting close to 200.
Right.
That is a problem.
Yes.
Their bullpen is not. And I'd rather add at third base than shortstop.
I would
could play Caballero.
I would
at
agree
short.
because Caballero can start it.
So do you get a guy like I don't know, Matt Chapman or like like guys like that lock up that corner. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do and how aggressive Cashman wants to be because the American League is open for the taking.
Yeah.
They've kind of balked at being super aggressive in the last few years. Obviously, they've done a lot in the offseason, but not as much at the trade deadline. So it's going to be interesting to see what the Yankees do, and we will be talking about that next week. Let's talk about your Boston Red Sox.
All right.
A team that maybe 2 weeks ago we would have been talking about selling.
Yeah.
Is now going to be on the buying end, and they already were on the buying end. They traded for Curtis Mead. They sent Connolly early, who has been good for them, 7-5. He had a 3.4 ERA. Sent him for Curtis Mead, and Curtis Mead immediately got hurt.
Yeah.
So he's on the 10-day IL with a fractured left wrist. I don't know what that means for timeline.
Yeah.
Kind of disappointing. I mean, hopefully he'll be back by the postseason.
Yeah, I mean, I think at this point it's just, I think the hope is that he's back. It's just, that's a disaster of a trade for Craig Breslow. And, you know.
Breslow? I mean, let's talk about first, before we get to the injury, what you thought of that trade even before the injury, because we had talked about it a little bit.
Yeah, I didn't love it. You know, Curtis Mead he's a righty bat with power. Which is what they need. I just didn't love that was the move, and that's what they gave up for Mead. You know, especially because he's a second baseman. He can play in the infield every position except shortstop, which is kind of what they need right now. And even before the trade, you know, Anthony Siegler and Romy Gonzalez pretty much were good at second base, and you bring in another second baseman. I didn't love it. Connolly early also has been just fantastic for the Red Sox. And, I mean, you're talking about a guy who, you know, would be starting a postseason game for the Red Sox this year, no doubt.
Yeah.
And, you know, I mean, he started Game 3 of the Yankees series last year, and even though the Red Sox lost that game early, you know, was fantastic in that outing. I also just don't love it because early, if you're going to trade from your young starting pitching depth, which they had before they got rid of early, they had some depth. They could move one piece. That's the move. Now you can't really dip into that starting pitching depth again for another trade. If they were going to move early, I would have liked it to have been for a Neto or a Pena or a shortstop who could add some pop and kind of round out the lineup. I don't really feel like the lineup is leaps and bounds ahead of where it was.
Yeah, but I mean, even and the thing is, like it's less about Curtis Mead, although he's, you know, 253, 17 homers,
Right.
like solid player. It's more about what they gave up to have to get him.
Yeah.
If they had gotten him for maybe a guy who hasn't, you know, a guy in AAA or you know, a starter you have a lesser opinion of.
Yeah.
Maybe you think there's still another move to come, or, they didn't give up that much for him, we plug him in. You think about it a little differently, where when you give up a guy like Connolly early, who has been, I mean, one of the, you know, kind of diamond in the rough guys of this is a guy we found and has been very good, and give him up for...
And he's been a big part of why this team turned it around.
Yeah. So when I got that notification... As a Mets fan, who again we'll talk about them in a little bit, I was excited just because I'm like, if Curtis Mead is getting a legitimate like future, potentially top tier, at least like number 3 starter, and if like what he could project out to, then sellers are going to be doing pretty well.
Yeah.
It was also just interesting because it's like why make the move so early?
Yeah.
When maybe you wait a little bit. I mean, maybe they thought the Nationals would go on a win streak and not sell. I don't know, but like that is a team that's probably going to be selling as well, even though they're in it. So it was already just an kind of a weird trade, and then again he gets hurt.
Yeah, that was just
when the Red Sox are buying some goodwill in their front office is like you just get a little bit less mad. They
right. Like it was like Breslow all of a sudden had this way of like making us question him again. Like all of a sudden, every move that he made was starting to pan out a little bit. They go on this crazy win streak, and then this happened,
and then Mead,
and then we all question it. And listen, once again, this is nothing against Curtis Mead. I'm sure he'll be a good player.
People like early, so.
But I mean, on a team based on pitching and defense, you give up one of your pitchers.
And again, the Red Sox have. It's trading from a strength because they've found a number of starters like Jake Bennett and guys who have panned out for them, so they could afford to give up a starter to get something back. It's just you would expect to get back more if you were going to go about it that way.
Absolutely, and I think once again, like I said before, now you've kind of spent that depth, at least for the season, especially with Garrett Crochet on the injured list. We don't really know if we're getting him back this year. It's kind of like, all right, now you can't really take away from the pitching staff anymore. If anything, not that that's a position they need to add to, but the only thing that you should be doing to that pitching staff is adding to it at this point. You shouldn't be taking anything away.
So that leads us to what they're going to do. I think the biggest one is shortstop, where I think that's if anything's going to happen, that's probably, not that there couldn't be other moves, but that is the leader in the clubhouse of, if we're talking about big splashes.
Yes.
Looking at an MLB.com article, again, you mentioned Neto. CJ Abrams' name has been out there if you want to do another trade with the Nationals.
Listen, I'll say this. Breslow loves to trade with the Nationals. That's where he got Bennett from.
Them back, yeah. So Jeremy Pena, former Valley Cat on the Astros, that would be, I would assume, a lot to get him. Or Otto Lopez for the Marlins are guys that have been mentioned. It seems like Neto, they don't want to just give him up because there's no reason to just give him up for nothing. So that's going to be a bigger haul. I think Abrams would be even more than Neto. Abrams is.
Yeah, I think that goes back to the frustration of trading way early. Like, the position of need is shortstop. It's going to take a haul to get an impact bat at that position. Early could have been a part of that. Like, if you get an impact shortstop,
it's like
you're
that's
okay
a package
with it.
that you can
you can live with giving up Connolly early for that.
Now, Pena is a free agent after next year, so there's a thought that the Astros could get rid of him, but Houston, even though they're 500, they're also like
the AL
just
West
out of the West.
So bad.
So like, and honestly, we talk about being in it.
Yeah,
the Astros are one of those teams that you could see. Making, if they made a couple moves, they're not that far off. They're a half game out behind the Rangers. They're one game back in the wild card, and they have, Altuve, Alvarez, Pena. They have a good core there if they made some tweaks. So they might be buying maybe a soft buy rather than a sell. So, as a Red Sox fan, what are you hoping to when we're talking next week, what are you hoping for?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'd like for them to add a shortstop because right now, Andrew Monasterio has been playing well, at least at the plate. He's made a couple errors in this A's series, but I think shortstop, you'd like to address it. I don't really want to see them mess with the catchers. Connor Wong and Carlos Narvaez haven't been great at the plate, but the pitching's been so good. I wouldn't want to mess with any type of, who likes to throw to who's calling the game. I think they're okay there. Middle relief, you add an arm or two. Shortstop's the big one. Like, if you can get a bat to play shortstop.
That's what raises the ceiling of the team.
That's what moves this team from can make the wild card and can maybe win a series because of their pitching to if they get a shortstop, all of a sudden this is a much better lineup. And if you get a little healthier, then it's actually a very good, complete team.
All right. Let's get to the Mets. We talked about it a little bit last week, so I won't go fully into it, but they're going to be in sell mode, obviously. They are way out of it. They are not in it. They are 17 and a half games back in the division and 11 back in the wild card. So they're done. And Soto's hurt. So they're done. But in terms of what they're going to trade, you can expect all of the – I'm trying to find – there was a list I had pulled up of – here it is – of the free agents that are like the guys who are going to be free agents are going to be gone. So Freddie Peralta is going to be gone. Luis Robert is probably going to be gone. Clay Holmes probably going to be gone. They were talking to him about an extension, but it doesn't seem like that's going to come to fruition. And he's looked good in rehab, and he was pitching so well. I mean, he had a 2.39 ERA. He will get a good return. Yeah. I think Peralta will still get a good return because I think he's got high upside. Yeah. So those two guys will be gone. AJ Minter and Brooks Raley, like veteran lefties. Yep. They'll be gone. And then Tyrone Taylor as well as Robert in the outfield. Tyrone Taylor all of a sudden is swinging an incredible bat. Has 6 home runs in the month of July.
That's pretty good.
Which is like more home runs. Let me just make sure. He had he had 2 home runs last year and 7 the year before in his 2 years. So he's had 9 home runs total in his first 2 years as Mets. He has 9 right now and 6 this month.
Wow.
And he's hitting .333 this month with an OPS of 1.286.
Yeah, that'll get the job done.
So a way to get hot at the right time, Tyrone, so we can send you out of town for a nice little package. So those guys will be gone, and you'll get something back. I think the next thing is, do you trade both Luke Weaver and Huascar Brazoban? I think Weaver's trending yes, just because of how good he's been.
Yeah.
The thing is, you have control of Brazoban or Weaver for next year. Brazoban, I think it's 2 more years. So could those guys be a part of the team next year? Because they're not going to tank. Like,
Right.
they're not going, or I shouldn't say tank. They're not going. They want to compete next year, so they're not going to just strip the roster of like guys like. You can forget about them trading Lindor. You can forget about them. Obviously, Soto, Benj, like though no one else. Those guys are part of the core, and they're going to try to compete with them. But I think Weaver, with a year of control and how well he's pitching, could get a really big return for Weaver. So I think that he will be traded. Brazoban, I think it would depend on the return, but if you can get a good return for Huascar Brazoban, I'm pulling the trigger.
Yeah.
And we could figure out the bullpen in the offseason. So that is the next step, and then you get to the third and final one, which will be a very interesting one to watch, which is the catcher situation.
Yeah.
They have, I mean, you could argue that Francisco Alvarez is a top 5, certainly a top 10 hitting catcher in baseball.
Sure. Yep.
There are not many hitting catchers in baseball. He
No.
has a 781 OPS. He has 258 with 12 homers. So, like, again, they have control of him. Do you want to be trading? If you're trying to compete next year, are you going to trade? Who are you going to get that's going to be better or replace him?
Yeah.
But you also have Luis Torrens, who's he hits 220, his 2 homers, 20 RBIs. Doesn't look like much. He throws out more runners than anybody, percentage-wise, behind the dish. He gets clutch hits. He puts the ball in play, like for teams that like the Yankees that need catchers, and you could see how bad catching can be at the plate with guys like Austin Wells. He would have value as well, although it seems like they're getting backup. They would want to get a starting catcher return, and they're getting backup offers.
Yeah,
if that makes sense. I think that they keep both. That would be my prediction. I don't think that they're going. I think they like Torrens, and I think Alvarez. If they got wowed, maybe you trade Alvarez and then Torrens is your starting catcher, and that's not the worst case scenario. I just think you don't find guys. He can be frustrating at times. He can hit into a lot of double plays. You don't find guys at the catcher position these days. They're not just growing on trees. Guys that can hit like that. So
listen, yeah. There's a reason that Alvarez was the top prospect in baseball just a couple of years ago. It's because this is what he can do. I mean, 258, 12 home runs, right? He was injured for part of the year. Like, this guy is, this guy can hit. Yeah. He can straight up hit, and that doesn't happen every day, like you said. Now, with that being said, if they get a really good offer, you at least have to listen. You got to consider it, because if you can get a haul for a guy like Francisco Alvarez in a year where you're not competing this year, there's a good chance for a lockout next year, so who knows what that season's going to look like. I think you at least have to listen, but I think it's got to be a wow offer because you have control over him, and hitting catchers do not grow on trees. This guy is a rarity, and while, like you said, he can be frustrating, at the end of the day, he's a catcher who can hit for power, and that doesn't happen all the time. Yeah.
So those are the things we're keeping an eye on in baseball. Football's back.
Oh, yeah.
We're talking training camp and a little preview of the season when we come back. welcome back to 10 for 10. And football is back, kind of.
Yeah.
Training camp.
Training camp.
It's back.
We're starting to
We'll be saying it's back for a while, but really be back when they're playing games.
Yeah.
But we'll take it for now.
Oh yeah.
We are gonna we'll talk about these teams kind of as we go through this training camp because there's gonna be a lot of topics that pop up, previews.
Yeah.
We can get a little in deep. Maybe we'll do some record predictions and stuff like that. But for now, we'll do kind of a general overview of each team going into training camp, and we begin with the Giants, and then we'll go through the AFC East, which we have a lot of teams of interest there. A Giants team that is now led by John Harbaugh, the Harbaughs. By John Harbaugh coming over from Baltimore, bringing over fullback Patrick Ricard and tight end Isaiah Likely. They added Darnell Mooney. They added Calvin Austin to the receiver room. Odell Beckham Jr. is back.
Yeah.
We'll see if he makes the team.
Why not?
Juju Smith-Schuster, and obviously Jackson Dart and Cam Scadaboo will be recovered from. It looks like he's going to be recovered if he stops flipping from his knee injury.
Malik Neighbors too.
Malik Neighbors has looked good.
Yeah, it looked really good. Yeah,
and looks like a guy who could play first week of the season, which I think some Giants fans were worried about. It looked like he had to have like a cleanup procedure after the initial procedure, but he looks good. This is going to be a really interesting year for the Giants because you're not expecting them to contend for a championship or for the NFC, but I think that this is a team. The goal is to make the playoffs, and the goal is to take a nice step. Obviously, this is hard in John Harbaugh's first year. It's about building that culture, and it's going to be a critical year in doing that. Their over/under in Vegas is 7.5.
Okay,
and I think that is so fair in terms of listen, Vegas is good at what they do. That is right around are they going to be 500? Are they going to be above 500? They're going to be below. It really could go any way because in my opinion, John Harbaugh, Ravens fans are frustrated with him because they couldn't get over the hump in a while after winning that Super Bowl with Flacco at the end of Ray Lewis's career. But they were always good. Yeah. Him and Tomlin are both you're never going to have a bad team. Yeah. That I think is almost out of the question outside of really bad quarterback play or really bad quarterback injury.
Yeah.
So I think that they're going to be around 500. How far over that can they go? What is going to be the ceiling of this team? I think they've got a high floor. I don't know how high the ceiling is.
Yeah.
And I think that will come down to Jackson Dart, who played really well his rookie year, but the sophomore slump is a real thing.
Sure.
And you want to see him take the next step. People were really excited about C.J. Stroud.
Yeah.
Can go the other way real quick. So I think that is the X factor. I think they now have some talent around him with Neighbors back, Scadaboo back. I think that Darnell Mooney's, an additive. Isaiah Likely, I think, could have a big season at the tight end position. So he has. I think you like that even more weapons, but they've got some around him now. Where last year was rough towards the end of the year. Can you keep him healthy?
Yeah.
And not run around like a madman? And can he take that next step? I think he's going to, they're going to be disciplined. Yeah. I think their defense is going to be solid. It seems silly to be the quarterback is the X factor, but does he take that step?
Yeah, I think the defense is going to be there. The special teams are going to be there. They're going to be able to run the ball in some way, shape, or form. I think the biggest thing, like you said, is Dart taking the next step, but I think part of that development is protecting himself significantly better than he did last year. Yeah. He put himself in some compromising situations. He got hurt, and I think health is going to be a huge factor for this offense and whether Dart can take that next step. Because, like you said, part of the problem, Dart, obviously his development is important, but part of that is him being on the field and being at practice full time. I think having his running game and having his weapons around him are a big part of that too. And last year, Dart got hurt. His top running back got hurt. His top receiver was hurt. So I think this team's health is going to be important. I agree. I think this team can be around 500. I think Harbaugh, but I think we said this when they hired him, home run hire to bring in Harbaugh.
Oh, yeah.
I think this is a team that if they establish the culture, they can play hard gritty football. I think they'll be in a lot of games, and I think it's going to be whether Dart can deliver in those big moments, and we'll see when he does. I think the other thing for Giants fans is that there also has to be a little bit of patience because this team is exciting. This team was exciting last year. You have your quarterback seemingly. You have your new head coach. It might take a year for this team to figure out really how they're going to fit into that Harbaugh identity. So we'll see. I mean,
Well, you also have a quarterback who is always going to be tough, is in his second season learning his second offense because Matt Nagy, an offensive coordinator who people could say whatever they want about him being a head coach. You know, he's been a successful offensive coordinator in the past. But that is always an adjustment in year 2 for any quarterback. But when you're already adjusting to year 2, but then you're also learning a new playbook, that can be difficult for a young quarterback. I think the other big thing, and then we'll move on to the Jets, is how they open the season, and if it doesn't go well, how they respond. Because they open on Sunday Night Football against the Cowboys
big
at
game.
home. But that is a big game right out of the gate. A winnable game, but a big game nonetheless.
Sure.
And then you go to the Rams week 2 on Monday Night Football.
Right.
So 2 primetime games against the Cowboys, your biggest rival, and the Rams, who are like the Super Bowl favorite.
Yeah.
So
have a really good team and the league MVP.
and Myles Garrett now on defense, and possibly Aaron Donald.
We'll
They're
see
really
about
good.
That is a good team, in case you were wondering.
But then we're not doing the whole schedule game. But the next 4, you have Titans, Cardinals, Commanders, Saints. So you have 4 winnable games after that.
Yeah.
We're not going to go through the whole rest of the schedule. We're not going to do the Mike and the Mad Dog win, loss. Maybe that'll be for another day. But initial lean, we maybe later in the as we get closer, we'll do like official predictions, and maybe we will go through the whole schedule the week before, leading up to the NFL season. Right now, my initial lean would be over 7.5. I'm not saying what to do with your money. I'm just saying if I'm playing the game theoretically, from a theoretical perspective, I think that they would win more than 7 games. It's close, but I think that this is, if they don't go 8 and 9, which would be over that, I think they would be a very disappointing season. And again, with Harbaugh, I trust them to get 8 wins.
Yeah, I'll say this. I think if they're healthy,
that's the biggest if, yes.
I think if they're healthy, they'll go above that number. I agree. I think this team is in the 8 to 9. I think 8 to 9 wins is probably where this team will end up. I think if they're healthy, they'll compete for a playoff spot. But we'll see. That's a big if.
All right, we're moving on to Brian Rudman's New York Jets. Yeah. So the Jets, year 2 of Aaron Glenn.
Try not to act so happy.
I mean, I just can't with Aaron Glenn. I'll get to my prediction in a second. Listen, there are things to be excited about in terms of like they have a very interesting rookie class.
Sure.
With Bailey and Sadiq at tight end. They have an infusion of talent. They got Minka Fitzpatrick.
Yeah.
It's a more talented team.
For sure.
Geno Smith, say what you will. He was terrible last year. He's shown flashes with the Seahawks. He's better than what they had at the quarterback position last year. It's not anything to get super excited about, but if you watch, I watch the NFL. I've watched a lot of NFL games. The Raiders' offensive line last year was one of the worst atrocities I've ever seen in my life. So, like, anytime I was watching the Raiders, I think I had Brock Bowers in the league. Somebody I had Raiders players. I think I had Genty.
Sure.
And they can't it's like, oh, Genty's not having a good season. It's like they can't move anybody up front, so they can't get any running room, which means they have to drop back to pass and 3rd and long all the time, and they can't block anybody. So Geno's getting smashed, throwing picks like that. He's not going to win you a Super Bowl, but he's also. I think he could be better than what we saw from him last season.
Yeah, I think so.
That being said, their over-under is 5.5, which again, fair,
accurate.
Yeah, that's kind of where you'd expect them to be.
Yeah.
We'll start with, in terms of opinion, we'll start with you. What are your general feelings as a Jet fan going into this year?
Yeah, I mean, I think they they have a lot of raw talent. I think you look at the O-line, there's some talent and continuity from last year, which I'm excited about. I love Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall, and I think that they added some key pieces around them through the draft. But once again, they're rookies, so it might take a little bit for them to figure out, where they fit in the NFL. I like some of the pieces on offense, but obviously, regardless of what Geno Smith does, he's not the guy of the future for this Jets team. So it's kind of just them the hope is that they kind of figure out what they want to be in the future this year. I think on defense, there's more talent. Can they get a pick this year? I really hope so.
That was crazy.
That was unbelievable.
From one of the great defensive backs who's
right.
The head coach.
Yeah. Will Aaron Glenn's superpower of calling defensive plays actually make a difference?
I forgot about the superpower. I forgot we're unleashing the superpower of him calling defensive plays.
Where was that last year?
I forgot about the superpower of not having Steve Wilkes as his defensive coordinator.
Yeah. So listen, I think there are a lot of individual players that I'm excited to see. I don't really know what to expect out of this team this year. 5.5 seems accurate. They start with a gauntlet of a schedule, so
Listen,
I don't really know what to expect out of
You
this
look
group.
at the Jets on paper at the depth chart, and you're like, this is not as bad as it was last year, and maybe they'll be a little bit better than you think. But here's the problem. Don't forget, because I almost allowed myself to until you said some of those things. Don't forget who this coaching staff is and who they have leading this team. Sorry. Aaron Glenn, it was year one, but was one of the worst head coaches we've ever seen, whether it's year one or not. And don't forget that after the year, he basically said, it's all your fault to all of their assistant coaches and got rid of their defensive coordinator, their offensive coordinator, and didn't bring in the most exciting. They have Frank Reich, who's offensive coordinator.
Yeah,
but so Frank Reich is going to be coaching this team as the head coach at some point. Okay, I said it. There it is. All right, there it is. Because Aaron Glenn he got so much heat last year. People were like, should we fire? There was a push to fire him after just one season. They decided not to do it. But he is on a hot seat. The problem is he's on a hot seat for a team that is looking towards the future. They're not looking towards this year. So what happens when we will play a short schedule game this year right now?
Sure.
What happens when they go to Tennessee week 1 and lose to Robert Saleh on the road? If that happens, or when. And then have to play the Green Bay Packers and fall to 0-2. And then play the Lions and fall to 0-3. And then play the Bears and fall to 0-4. Even if you beat the Browns,
right,
and you're 1-5, or 1-4, then they play the Patriots on the road.
Yeah.
Is he going to, if they don't get a win in a surprise spot early, because even the Titans would be a surprise spot just because I think most Jets fans are programmed to think that.
We're programmed to think that our former head coach and all the former players are going to absolutely destroy us to start the season.
And that is probably what is going to happen. So does he survive a 1-5 start after what they saw?
Probably not.
Last season.
I mean, if they start 0-4, they're going to be calling for his job.
I think by the Week 7 Dolphins game, I don't like to call for people. I'm not calling for a firing. This is just a prediction. I don't know that he's coaching that team going into Week 7.
They're going to have to win some games. For sure.
They're going to have to surprise, or you can sell it if they're competitive with the Packers, and competitive with the Lions.
But you also got to get wins.
Unorganized and like a joke, and the end of half situations, all of a sudden we're playing timeouts to the locker room, and running the ball and bad just horrible clock management. Does he have a clock management guy? That's what I want to know. He made all these off-season hirings because he fired everyone because it was everyone else's fault but Aaron Glenn's. Did he hire a guy who could strictly do clock management? That's what I want to know. Because he should, because he was awful at it. So, when we're talking about what to expect from the Jets this season, on paper, they have the talent to take a step forward or be exciting, but then you remember that it's the Jets and it's Aaron Glenn.
Yeah, I think the other tough thing is we went through the beginning of the schedule. It's not an easy start to the schedule, and even then you get Dolphins, Raiders. even after that stretch, you still got the Chiefs on the road, the Bills twice. You got to face the Broncos and the Chargers. This is a tough schedule to begin with. It's a better team talent-wise and probably will look better.
But the schedule's
organized. The schedule's tough.
And year to year, it does change. All of a sudden, the Broncos, who were great last year, you never know. In the NFL, it could flip.
Right, but the problem is that, and I agree, I think Geno Smith will be better. It's just, I think Geno Smith will be better than Justin Fields, but I don't think it's going to be enough with a young offense around him to take that step and win some of these games. We'll see. I hope I'm wrong, because as much as I'm already thinking about the next draft and who their next quarterback's going to be come, September 13th at 1 o'clock when the Jets kick off in Tennessee. I will be, living and dying by whether they beat the Titans.
We got to take a quick break. We're running a little bit low on time here, but I do want to just say the Jets added John Berger as a game clock management under head coach Aaron Glenn to help fix previous situational miscues.
Well, that's good.
This is according to AI Overview on Google. So welcome, John Berger. You are now on the hot seat, buddy. We're going to take a quick break. More NFL when we come back. Welcome back. We're going to have to go a little bit quicker on these ones. Again, we are going to be talking NFL as we lead up to it. We're going to be doing more previews, but this is just kind of an initial one because training camp started, and that includes the Bills starting in the rain on Wednesday at St. John Fisher in Rochester. And we won't use a lot of time on this because, and we will as we get closer, but it's really the same story with a new coach.
Yeah.
It's Joe Brady is in after they lost in the divisional round. They fired Sean McDermott, but the pressure is the same. Yeah. Will the Bills get over the hump? It's the same thing that we've been dealing with year to year.
Yeah.
The pieces are a little different. They brought in DJ Moore as an added threat for Josh Allen, but their win totals at over under 10.5. You expect them to be right there at the end.
Yeah.
It just comes down to, do they get over the hump? And is Joe Brady going to be the difference in doing that?
Yeah, I think, I've kind of come to realize the Bills situation very similar to what we talk about with the Yankees. Like, they're going to be there in the postseason. It's, can they get over the hump and get it done? Josh Allen, he's probably the best offensive player in the NFL right now. I think he's just phenomenal. I think DJ Moore is going to be a huge piece for them. That's the wide receiver they've been, Bills fans have been asking for a while now. So, listen, I think this team has the pieces. It's just a matter of whether they can get it done. I think, winning the division this year and not having to go on the road in the playoffs is going to be a big deal. And if they can get that done, they'll be in a position where they can make a run.
Standing here right now, I think that they win the AFC East, which is kind of a spoiler for my Patriots thing coming up. I think the Bills, again, will be great in the regular season.
Yeah.
Do I think that they did enough to get over the hump? I do not. I don't think that Joe Brady is that much of an improvement over Sean McDermott. He was already on staff. I don't if you really want to change things, I don't really love hiring a guy who's on your staff. I don't think that changes that much. Maybe game management, but I don't know why we think that Joe Brady necessarily is going to be better. He could be, but I'm not trusting that necessarily. I still just don't know if they have enough around Josh Allen. DJ Moore has been a great player. He only had 680 yards last year, and he played 17 games. I also just think that they could use a big physical receiver, and they added another guy who's 6 foot. Where Shakir, 6 foot receiver. They have Josh Palmer, but he's 6'1". It's not like they have they don't have that physical threat. Keon Coleman has been expected to be that at 6'3", but has not really been that. I would have preferred to see that kind of receiver.
Sure.
I think the biggest thing on offense for the Bills, does Dalton Kincaid take a big step and turn into one of the game's top tight ends, which he's capable of. We've seen flashes, but hasn't done as consistently. So can they do that? Can they be a little bit more consistent running the ball? But again, that's the same offensive coordinator.
Right.
So I'm not really that positive in them changing a ton of offensive schematics. And then on defensively, it's really, adding Bradley Chubb was the biggest move. And, their defense is solid. I don't have like huge concerns there.
Yeah.
I just don't know if they've done enough, in my opinion, to take like a huge step forward.
Yeah, I think the other thing on defense
But
is
they have Josh Allen.
Yeah,
so.
they got to stay healthy on defense. That was the biggest thing last year on the defensive side of the ball.
Let's go to the Patriots. I will save. We only have like 5 minutes to do the rest of these topics, so I'm going to save a lot of my Patriots stuff because I think the Patriots are going to take a big step back. Not a big step in terms of like them being bad. I think they had a fortunate schedule last year. I think they were well coached, but I don't necessarily know if they have like a top tier roster.
Yeah,
the Drake May's obviously great. Getting AJ Brown is big, and Romeo Doubs. So they have a really tough schedule. It's similar to the Jets because the AFC East is playing the same divisions. They have a really tough schedule. They get the first place teams out of those divisions, so it makes it harder in terms of the teams that they only play a couple of teams in, or one team in. So listen, the Patriots are going to be good. I don't know. I don't think that they. You see it before. It's hard to get to the Super Bowl, and a lot of those teams that don't win it take a step back.
Yeah,
their over under is also 10.5, similar to the Bills, so they're kind of right there. I have more faith in the Bills this year than I do the Patriots.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think, this team is going to get tested like they really hadn't been last year. Like they played well last year, but throughout this season, it's going to be many more difficult games throughout the year. We'll see. Drake May, he's going to have to step up and really play at an MVP level again against a higher level of competition week in and week out this year. We'll see. They're going to get tested.
And then quickly, again, we will have more on the Patriots, the Bill, all these teams when we get closer. This is an initial overview here. We just wanted to quickly wrap up with my Miami Dolphins. We get to talk about now because of Jeff Hafley, Siena grad, his first year as an NFL head coach, his first training camp as an NFL head coach. He talked about it. He just wants to come in. He wants to be himself.
Yep.
And listen, I think that this is a tough situation in the fact that they don't have a lot of talent, but there's also not a lot of expectations for this Dolphins team because they're in a rebuild. They got rid of Jalen Waddle. They don't have Tua. They brought in Malik Willis, who has shown promise and could be a potential franchise quarterback, but they don't have a lot of talent around him. They don't have Tyreek Hill anymore. Their over-under is 4.5. It's fair. There's not a lot of talent there. But again, for a guy like they have a lot of young talent. Yeah. They're looking towards the future with a new GM and Jeff Hafley. So can you just establish culture? Can you be disciplined? Can you compete? And can the young guys get better? Yeah. That's the kind of what you're looking for. So it's a double-edged sword where people are not going to be happy because you're not going to be winning a lot of games. But at the same time,
you got to take the little things away.
Dolphins fans like myself know we're not like, oh, Jeff Hafley, we're not winning right now. Like this is a rebuild project. Yeah. And their cap situation because of getting rid of Tua is a mess for the next year or so. So how much better can they get and those young guys get? We are going to take a quick break, and we're going to wrap up with some local football next. We are going to just go real quick through these last two because we're running out of time. We're going to talk about the Albany Firebirds first. Playoffs, playing the Minnesota Monsters at home Saturday, August 1st, looking to defend their AF1 title.
Yeah, listen, this is a team that kind of lost 3 of 4 down the stretch of the season, but they're healthy. Coach Damon Ware said this week they're about as healthy as they've been in 8 weeks, so going to be a different look from the last time they took the field.
And they smashed the Minnesota Monsters in week 1, 50-23. So expect to see a bounce back from the Firebirds at home to open up the playoffs for them. And then we move on to the Jim Dandy at Saratoga, always kind of a preview to the Travers, but this year it's a
Sure.
little different. We're not seeing Golden Tempo.
Right.
One of Chad Brown's horses who could be in the Travers has already run last week. We do see Renegade from Todd Pletcher with Irad Ortiz aboard. Looks like Commandment, Brad Cox's Commandment is currently the favorite, 6-5. Renegade was 7-5 on the opening line. It is a 5-horse field, a shorter field this year, so not as big of a preview as we've probably seen in years past.
Yeah, probably not, but you get to take a look at some horses that could be there. And the truth is, countdown to the Travers really on, and the Whitney's next week, so we're really getting into it up at Saratoga.
Asked and answered, 99-1 in the morning line here, if I'm seeing that correctly.
Okay.
So there you go. That's that. So that's something. We went 10 for 10. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week.